So the second season of Andor is now underway, and these episodes seem to be building towards one very significant incident within the course of Star Wars canon, and that is the Ghorman Massacre. So I figured today we could discuss exactly why the Ghorman Massacre is so significant to galactic history and the impact it has. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. So, the Ghorman Massacre is a key incident in the development of the Rebel Alliance. It was sort of the beginning of the end for the Empire and really got the ball rolling on the Rebel cause. But today we're going to talk about some of the more specific impacts the Ghorman Massacre had, and a little bit about what we can expect in the aftermath of the Ghorman Massacre once it's shown on screen later this season. But before we jump into that, a few things. First off, this may contain some spoilers for the rest of Season 2 of Andor. I haven't seen anything more than the first 3 episodes, so it's a lot of speculation, but if you're trying to avoid spoilers going forward, or based on what's out so far, I would recommend maybe avoiding this video. So, that being said, we're also not going to talk much about the massacre itself, as it will be shown on screen, and a lot of it may change based on what we know from previous canon sources, and I've actually already got a video on what we know about it so far in canon and legends, so I'm not going to retread that and instead focus on the effects of the Ghorman Massacre and why it was so significant. But I am going to give a brief cliff notes as to what it is. It is ultimately a massacre carried out by Imperial forces against the people of Ghorman who were protesting Imperial operations on their planet, which we know now was mining operations. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about what that actually means. So, the Ghorman Massacre was a very public display of the Imperial callousness towards dissent and disagreeing opinions, and it put on full display for the entire galaxy the ruthlessness of the Empire, which did wonders for swaying sympathies towards the rebel cause. It was the key turning point that led a lot of senators to leave the Imperial Senate and join rebel factions, and started the snowballing that would eventually build to be the Rebel Alliance, and we do see that in Rebels. The Ghorman Massacre actually more or less rivals the destruction of the Death Star and the Battle of Yavin for the significance they held in building the momentum behind the Rebel Alliance that would ultimately lead to the end of the Empire. The Imperial actions on Ghorman and the reaction to the protests on Ghorman would paint a vivid picture in the heads of the people of the galaxy just how awful the Empire is, and would lead to senators like Mon Mothma denouncing the Empire and firmly siding with the Alliance to restore the Republic, which would go on to eventually win the Galactic Civil War. And that's where the real sort of significance of the Ghorman Massacre lies. It's not a catastrophe in itself for the Empire. It was a success from an Imperial perspective. They did achieve their goals, but they looked terrible doing it. So it left a big black mark on the perception of the Empire within the people of the galaxy. But for the Rebel Alliance, it was a major propaganda win, one that was enough of a propaganda win that it created the momentum needed to actually found a faction and organize to be one unified organization that could take on the Empire. It's kind of ironic that, well, the Ghorman Massacre was an Imperial effort to regain control of a system that was starting to become a little bit rowdy and sort of put down a rebellion surrounding a mining operation, but it would go on to ultimately lay the groundwork for the end of the Empire. In the aftermath of the Ghorman Massacre, I would ultimately expect to see many senators leaving the Imperial Senate, most notably Mon Mothma, who we know departs the Senate and becomes a full-on representative within the Alliance to Restore the Republic, a full leader within that organization, a role that she would hold all the way through into the days of the New Republic. But my guess is she's not the only one. Now, the big question mark here is how the Empire responds to the backlash from the Ghorman Massacre. And what exactly we expect to see from the Empire, particularly the ISB after this, is kind of a mystery, and one of the things I'm really looking forward to seeing later on this season of Andor, where we could very well see how the Empire actually responds to the mass exodus of supporters they had following the Ghorman Massacre. So to put all this into a nice little, encapsulated description, the Ghorman Massacre showed the galaxy that the Empire was ultimately untrustworthy, that the Empire was brutal and repressionist, and changed the public perception of the Empire to be overwhelmingly negative and led a lot of people to start siding with the rebellion, whereas the Battle of Yavin, a similarly significant event, showed that the Empire could be beaten and that the Empire was not infallible. And those two things together ended up presenting a very powerful message that led to a lot of systems and individuals siding with the Rebel Alliance. If you'd like to learn more about the Ghorman Massacre itself and what we know about it from Canon and Legends from before this season of Andor, I'll leave a link up here to a video I made a while back breaking down the Ghorman Massacre and exactly what it is. There'll be some things in this video that are covered in that, so be aware, but that video focuses more on what the massacre itself was. And I'd like you to let me know down in the comments how you think the Empire will respond to the sort of lack of support following the Ghorman Massacre. Do you think we're going to see a brutal crackdown from the ISB, or do you think we're going to see chaos within Imperial ranks while they struggle to sort of adapt to the rapidly changing political landscape they find themselves in? And if you have anything else you'd like to see me cover in Star Wars or anywhere else in science fiction, you can let me know down below in the comments. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.